fault line of South Africa's deepest frustrations and perhaps you could argue its boldest hopes. Think about it. Schools, clinics left unfinished, construction sites often held hostage by extortion gangs, small contractors pushed to the brink because of late payments from the state. These aren't just abstract failures. They are the daily obstacles to growth, dignity, perhaps even delivery. Last week, two developments sharpened the focus. The CEO of the Independent Development Trust stepped down. No golden handshake after a disciplinary hearing linked to an 836 million rand oxygen plant project. At the same time, the public protector cleared Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean Macpherson of allegations of improperly interfering within that very entity. So this morning, we've invited him and he's graciously agreed to join us in the studio to talk about the work that is unfolding in his department. Minister Dean Macpherson, thank you so much for popping into the studio. Welcome to 702 Breakfast.
Thanks, Bongani. It's great to be here. It's actually a little bit surreal. The last time I sat here, TD Madia was sitting in your seat.
Gosh.
And I still miss her immensely. She was an amazing person for this organization. And I miss having the tough questions, so I'm sure you've got a few lined up for me.
You're putting me under pressure now because now I have to rise to the level of TD Madia. All right, let's get straight into it. I mean, when you scan your portfolio right now, public works, infrastructure, state entities, what would you say is changing because of the efforts you're putting in, and where are the areas where there's stubborn resistance?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. But if you think about it, public works really has for so long just become a manager of bad buildings, an overseer of incomplete projects, when it should actually really be an economic engine for growth and jobs. And that's how we've really tried to restructure and reposition the portfolio, is to become something that thinks in advance, acts with vision, and delivers with purpose. And so that's really where we are headed. And I think that some of the work that we've done has really paid off. Up until Q3 of last year, there had been 3 consecutive declining GDP contributions from the construction sector. That flipped for the first time in a year. In the third quarter of last year, we saw 130,000 new jobs created in the construction sector. And that was 50% of all new jobs in the country. And so I think that some of our policy interventions, some of our structural interventions are starting to pay off. Of course, we still have areas of weakness, particularly when it comes to the completion of projects on time and on budget. And also what we do with all of these assets that the state owns, whether those are public buildings, land, etc. And we are now moving into a new iteration of what to do with that.
I mean, I mentioned this IDT issue in my introduction. The former CEO, Tebogo Malaga, dominated headlines, of course, when she was caught on camera trying to bribe a journalist. And I wonder if the brazenness of that attempt suggests someone who thought they could get away with it. And it almost gives you a sense that it wasn't an isolated problem, that this is the kind of thing that can happen. What's your view on it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely is a microcosm for what was going on and possibly still could be going on in some places. That people thought that they enjoyed protection from wherever that may exist, and that they could actually get away with it, that they didn't have to deliver, they could appoint to contractors that didn't meet minimum specifications, and that people that were charged with responsibility didn't actually have to uphold that. And you'll remember, Bongani, it's well documented that when I started the cleanup of the IDT, I was crucified. I was on the front page of certain media publications being called corrupt, bribing journalists, and all sorts of horrible things. Really personally affected me. Death threats that came our way.
Death threats.
Death threats.
Just tell me about the death threats.
Well, I mean, there were actually WhatsApp conversations that the law enforcement agencies had intercepted, where they were actually discussing
how to
my
take
demise.
you out.
Yeah, and that's not great when you get given that sort of thing.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah. So, but it's the territory in which you operate in, and so But we were determined to get to the bottom of what was going on there because we believed that it was in a bigger network than what we fully understood.
I'll come back to that cleanup, but specifically when it comes to Tebogo Malaka, she's gone from the entity. Does that mean she will escape without criminal liability?
Absolutely not. And I was very forthright to the board that no golden handshake could be paid. So when they came to me and said, this is what we are looking at, and that she wants to resign before the disciplinary hearing, I was adamant that no golden handshake or exit payments could be made. And I also made it very clear to the board that her resignation does not absolve her from criminal or civil litigation. And you will recall, Bongani, that it was I myself, the Minister of Public Works, that went and actually personally criminally charged her, because I made it very clear to everyone in the department that if you steal or you do anything wrong, I will personally deal with that.
All right, let's talk about the public protector. She's cleared you of breaching the ethics code, but raised concerns about political interference.
Well, no, what she did is she said, actually, I did the right thing. She said that a complaint was laid with the presidency that a company wasn't being paid on time, 2 years over time, that Treasury regulations are very clear that government must pay within 30 days. And so I did the right thing by inquiring to the IDT, what is going on? What is the process here? I cannot interfere and say, you must pay this person. But as the executive authority, I have every right to play oversight and to inquire why regulations are not being adhered to. And what that set off was opportunistic behavior by the EFF when they then went and laid a criminal charge against me and went to the public protector. And once it became clear that there was no evidence against me, they lost interest, and they didn't even follow up with the interim report. The interesting point around this whole thing was then Action SA's response to this claim, who then asked the president to suspend me. And at that time, we didn't know the full scope of what was going on in the IDT around that 800 million rand oxygen plant tender. But it was very clear that political parties and individuals had a lot to gain by getting me out the way, and that's why they wanted me out of office. And we see what now the result of that was once the report has cleared me.
If you want to be hands-on, where's the line between fixing a broken system and perhaps overstepping?
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to continually chart a path of delivery while fixing. It's like that old adage of fixing the plane while you fly it. I don't think that you can stop one to do the other. And of course, some of these things you have to do by motivating people to change the direction, and sometimes you have to do through by force and say, actually, we can't continue along this this trajectory anymore. So it's walking that fine balance.
You've spoken before about pushback against your cleanup drive. Where do you find the most resistance? Is it other politicians? Is it officials who are entrenched? Or is it a system itself that encourages this kind of behavior?
So I've tried to take the approach, Bongani, that says to my team that I won't ask you to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. So I ask everyone to work hard. I work hard. We work long hours and long days to try and rebuild the system. I think that the system also sometimes creates paralysis in that it doesn't incentivize people often to take bold decisions, and because they can then find resistance, and then they don't have the backup of senior management or the minister. And I've always said to my team, if you make a decision, I will back you, but just make the decision, and then we see where it heads out. So we're trying to reform the culture from within. We're also trying to shield the department from political interference, from outside influence, and just say that the thing that we want to do is to deliver two things and two things only: growth and jobs. That is our daily obsession. Every decision that we make is measured against those two metrics, and if it doesn't meet that test, we throw it out.
Where are we on the late payments for contractors? I mean, we've seen this as an issue really for decades. Delays, excuses, and I suppose you really want more than just slogans in place to fix it. You need systems that become institutionalized so that the system almost works on its own.
Absolutely, and I want that system to live beyond my term in office, and that's why we have embraced digitization and digital technology wholeheartedly and say that actually our systems, we have files like you cannot believe. We don't want to operate on paper. We want a lot of AI to start coming in. So
and that's where the fiddling happens,
and,
right?
And so we become predictive, and we're piloting e-procurement. So we actually take the human hand out of procurement altogether. And I think that that's really exciting for us, so that we build something that's more than us, outlasts us, and delivers for a lot longer. The one thing I am proud of is that we sit at around between 98 and 99% of payments on time within 30 days. Because I understand that if you want to kill business and if you want to see people on the street, if government doesn't pay on time, that's the surest way to do it. So we're very proud about increasing that record now. I want to get to 100%. 99% is not good enough for me.
The construction mafia, you mentioned a little earlier on, are we turning the tide as far as that is concerned? Arrests and convictions, along, of course, with projects now starting to come back on stream?
I think so. And, that's one of our great successes. And everyone told me, don't touch it, Dean. It's too dangerous. People lose their lives. But, we can't just sit back and watch thugs and criminals overrun our sites. And so our construction action plan puts the fighting the construction mafia at the heart of that. We've seen 175 people convicted of site stoppages. In KwaZulu-Natal, we used to have 60 stoppages a month. We are now down to less than 10, which is unbelievable. And confidence exists in the construction industry. That's why you've seen that turnaround in the contribution to GDP. Numbers are up in jobs. Businesses are hiring again. Construction companies are seeing profitability because they don't have those stoppages like they used to.
Where's your oversight role when it comes to a matter like that George building collapse? I think a lot of people are still uncertain as to where that matter is. Doesn't seem that there's much progress in terms of arrests or at least visible accountability. What's your role in that kind of scenario?
So we commissioned a report in forensic investigation through the Council for the Built Environment. And I went and personally delivered that report to the families. And I said, I can't have you guys hearing this through the media. I'm going to come and give that to you. So we went and sat down with them, as painful as that was. And we pointed out where the failures were. And what I've said, Bongani, I don't want just people to get a fine or people to say, oh, this was a tragic mistake. 34 people can't die and someone doesn't end up in jail. Absolutely. There must be criminal consequences. And so
Have there been?
And so I've actually worked really hard to protect the sanctity of that report so that the NPA can go and secure a conviction against those that have been found to be wanting. And so I've taken a bit of flack publicly and in Parliament because I haven't released the report publicly. But that's because law enforcement and prosecutors have asked me not to, so that they can actually take that sterile report as the basis of those criminal charges. And I'm really hoping that they do it sooner rather than later.
But if it's going to come out in the court process, it will be public record anyway.
Of course, and then it can do so. But what we can't do is we can't allow the investigation and the prosecution to be undermined by a key piece of evidence. And that's really how we see that now, as a key piece of evidence to prosecution.
On a completely unrelated matter, because KZN is close to your heart, we're watching the government of provincial unity there. How long can you guys hang on to that province?
Well, I'll be meeting with the NFP in my capacity as the chairperson of the DA in KwaZulu-Natal. We have a bilateral with them, and we've said to them that we still see them as partners for progress in the province. We don't want them to leave the government of provincial unity. We want to hear what are their concerns, where are the areas that we can work together and try and find solutions. But
if you don't?
Well, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. But I still remain hopeful that the NFP can stay in government, that we can resolve any of those differences. And my party, which forms part of that coalition, is going to do everything that we can to protect the government and keep delivering for the residents of KZN.
Dean Macpherson on reform, resistance and results in the Department of Public Works. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Bongani.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.